Welcome back to the PFC Podcast. The views and opinions you are about to hear are the speakers and do not necessarily reflect those of anyone else. Now on to the podcast.
Welcome back to the PFC Podcast. This is Dennis, and this episode was recorded with the sponsorship and support of the Special Operations Medical Association. Thank you guys very much, and I hope you enjoyed the talk.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I want to say thanks to the organizers of this session and a chance for me to kind of stand up here and talk about some of the work that quite a lot of people have been doing. But first, I'm going to talk about where did this work come from. So go back about 3 years. Reagan and Lai and I were on a trip in Lithuania, and we were meeting with some of the Lithuanians, and we had the opportunity to meet a family that had been part of the resistance forces and had basically an underground bunker that we got to tour that they were doing printing operations out of. And in talking to them, as I explained how they were stuck underground for quite a long period of time, and there was no ability to go different places, is just turning in my mind, what would you do if you had medical emergencies, during this time, and would you be prepared to deal with it? And then we met with a couple of physicians that were working with their resistance forces who were like, hey, we're already teaching, TCCC to the community, to lay people, but we really don't have any material for PCC, so can you help us out with some PCC material? And at that point, I was like, sure. I thought we'd make a few PowerPoint slides and share them with them. But then I got to thinking about it, and I thought, this isn't just these individuals asking for this specific thing. This is a global problem. There are people across the globe that are affected by conflict and disaster. And what do they do when you can't get to medicine? What do you do when you don't have a medic with you? What do you do when it's going to be a long time before you can reach anybody, and what resources exist out there? And kind of the idea for a book was born. And so that's kind of the premise of this talk, but I'm going to kind of go through a little evidence of why should we even do this. I don't have any disclosures. This is my disclaimer slide. My opinions are my own and not of USIS or the DoD. So what are we going to talk about? We're just going to talk about the role of the civilian. What role do non-medical people play in the care of those wounded in conflict or disaster? It's already been mentioned as I've listened to the other lectures. It's come up several times. So we've heard that battlefield first responders are a good thing. We've heard that civilians, NGOs who are out there, we have to be connected to them and provide them resources. So we've already kind of heard about this a little bit. And we need to talk about what's effective. You can't just say, hey, we need to train lay people and then not understand what might work and what might not. And then let's look at the current resources and then do some sort of gap analysis and figure out what do we need. I think current events have taught us that medical infrastructure is vulnerable. The ability to have an ambulance come to you and survive coming to you and then survive getting back to wherever the medical treatment facility is not a given. The actual existence of the hospital is not a given. The ability to care in open in the places where a medical facility is easily identifiable is not a given. And so I think we have to think through, what does that look like when all the things we're used to having are not available? And I put these three pictures together to just show that even though we have advances and times change, history repeats itself. The bottom picture is a World War I underground facility. The right pictures, World War II. And then we have our modern conflict up in the upper left-hand side. Going underground. It was just mentioned in the last talk in here. We have to be prepared to do this. So that does not look like a hospital to me. It does not look like there's a lot of medical people hanging out there. So we need to equip them. So I look at that picture in the top right and I say, what happens if that medic kneeling down there is injured or wounded and can no longer care for that patient that is right in front of several civilians? Would they be able to step in and take over and do what needed to be done? Well, here's the ultimate layperson. Everybody knows who Claire Barton is. Was she a trained nurse? Did she have any formal, she's called a nurse all the time. Did she have any formal training? No, she was a school teacher. And we, to this day, know her effects on the battlefield. How can we not take that example and move it forward? So we have some modern literature that says this works. So this is a study, if it was 2010 in Iraq, they just trained lay people, no medical skills whatsoever, so that they would be able to intervene pre-hospital. And the outcomes were significantly different for the trauma patients that were helped by the first responders that were given very, very basic training. There was an attempt at a meta-analysis done, and when they pulled the studies and did the meta-analysis, there was just too much heterogeneity in the studies. But kind of the takeaways from looking at all that literature is that bystander training is really feasible. It does have impact. The mortality outcomes are different when you are able to get care closer to the patient, even by people that don't have formal medical training. So the data exists out there. We did a quick literature review to see what's effective, and I was actually had a couple students presenting this yesterday, and they were able to show that in-person, hybrid, online, they all work. And so you can use these ways to approach of saying, hey, I might not have an instructor to be in person, but can we get on the phone? Can we get online? Can we do things that connect us, that let us teach these people? Here's a recent publication about our battlefield first responders. The military is living evidence that we can train the non-medical personnel to do so many of these tasks, and they can step in and be able to free up the medical personnel so that they can do some of the more advanced skills provided. And this, when they looked at this, they showed, hey, they're not stepping outside their lane. They're doing what they're taught to do and staying within their scope of practice. So when I was looking at this, I was like, do we need another book? Don't reinvent the wheel. If there's something out there that works, let's use it. So I went looking for it. These are, ones I found on various bookstores and online. None of them really kind of aligned directly with trauma. A lot of, here's what you do for like first aid, poison ivy, snake bites, those kind of things. All great resources, but it didn't really specifically align with, I have a trauma patient and I'm stuck with a trauma patient. What am I going to do? The closest one was this book, and it's a good book. It has a lot of good information in there. But when you look at that book, if you were a layperson and you just opened to that page with all that text, would that be usable in the moment? You're stressed, somebody's bleeding in front of you, or breathing funny. Is that going to work for you? So it's like I looked at that and I thought, how can we make that better? So here's just an excerpt from the product we've been working on, and it's like, here you go. Step 1, here's a drawing, here's how to do it. It's written in language you can understand. So let's talk a little bit about the book. So I recruited about 30 medical students. First-year medical students who have never touched a patient are really good writers for a layperson book. And then they had a bunch of wonderful mentors that helped them. There's several in the audience right now as I look out there. A lot of people I have to thank for taking those students and guiding them through putting this together. But we wrote a book, we aligned it with the CPG so that we hope interoperability and continuity of care will make patient care easier. If we're all kind of rowing in the same direction, that boat's going to go a lot farther. The book was written with language targeted at a civilian population. There is no military jargon or anything like that in there because we want to empower people outside of the military to step in and help when we have casualties. It's written at a 5th grade reading level, really breaking down the concepts so that they're easy to understand. all the verbiage was selected so that it translates really well into other languages. And that I have to thank my technical editor for that. She worked tirelessly to make sure, hey, does that word make sense in another language? And if we're using an explanation, can it be used by people in another country? Everything's color indexed, so you can get to the chapter you want to get to really fast. We did a lot of graphic work to try and make things clear from a picture standpoint. And then we just really tried to standardize it. So every time you went to a chapter, you knew where to look. It's got supplies. It's got, hey, here are the key things you need to know. And then it's got like step-by-step instructions. So plug in the book. It was done by all government employees, so it will not be a for-profit, like in Missy's pocket book. It will be something that we hope to have published, open access, downloadable in digital form, but also printed so that if there, is a problem with access, internet might not be readily available. People may not be able to access their phones, those kind of things. So we wanted it in both formats so that, you can work with it either way. Hopefully this is a test print, so it's not the final print, but hopefully it'll be out sometime in the next 6 months so that we can get it in people's hands. But if you are interested in this, and think you have a community that would want it, please let me know, because we want to get it to people that need it. And I think we're going to address questions after Ray's talks. Okay, thanks so much.
That's it for today's podcast. Make sure to go to our website, www.prolongedfieldcare.org. Check out our free downloads and a ton of other helpful information. Grab a bag of our fresh roasted PFC coffee, links in the description below, and stay on the bleeding edge of combat and austere medicine. This is Dennis for the PFC Podcast, out.